Okay, good morning. It's end of October 2016 outside of Seattle. Weather's been terrible, just terrible. But the process for making coffee has evolved a little bit, and I thought I'd give you a quicker update of how I've been making really strong, really good coffee in my AeroPress. The process is pretty much the same, still with the Cuisinart, low-cost Cuisinart burr grinder from Costco. Still with the Bonavita kettle, upside down AeroPress, still using paper filters, kind of go back and forth on the metal filters or the paper filters, but the paper filters just make for an easier process. The big difference, I think, is that we're using a significantly upgraded classic coffee, which we're getting from our local coffee roaster, Vista Clara. It's outside of Snohomish, Washington. They make an outstanding product, which is all in the family. It actually comes from a family farm in Costa Rica, or at least some of it does. And they roast blends and varietals. I almost always get the varietals because I like to be able to tell the differences between the flavors of the different kinds of coffee. And today we're doing Sumatran that was roasted, let's see, 3 days ago. And so I want to show you what it's like to use an extremely fresh, extremely high quality coffee. And the reason I went over to that coffee is, well, first off, it's a very good deal. It's about $8-9 a pound, which is a lot cheaper than a lot of these boutique roasters do. But it's also the process. I've got it all down. I've finessed it a little bit. Times have changed a little bit, and I really can start to tell the value of the high-end coffee. I mean, once you've got this process in place, you can actually start investing in more expensive coffees and see some value. You can actually taste the difference. I mean, if you're using a pour over with no control over the temperature of the water, or it can be very iffy. And I think this has finally gotten me to a point where I think it's worth getting a better quality coffee. Anyway, Vista Clara, Snohomish, Washington, outstanding product. So anyway, I've heated up the AeroPress, heated up the cup, heated up my spoon, pre-ground the coffee for you so you don't have to listen to that. Still using 2 large scoops of coffee. I'll put up the number of grams on the side. So that's that. Made sure that the water it's 204 degrees right now. Oops. Now here what you're going to get to see is called a bloom. See if I can put a little extra in there. It's after about 4 or 5 days, it's toned down a little bit from what it was when it was brand new, fresh. But it's like there's a Alka-Seltzer in your coffee. It just, the entrained gases, and these aren't the gases in between the granules, it's the stuff inside the granules itself, take about 30-40 seconds to actually come out and stop foaming. So oops, start the timer. And so far it really it's not a feature. It'd be nice if it didn't do it, but it's a good indicator of how fresh the coffee is. And you'll notice I can stir it way back down. It's all foam at that point. Now we've gotten rid of the foam. Now we can do a normal pour over here, almost to the top. Give it a good swirl, and then extract the spoon while things are moving. That means you don't pull out minimal coffee bits in the spoon. Pre-wet the filter. Top off the water. Again, 204, 205 degree water. And there we go. Again, tight, because the nature of this cap, you can actually see on the sides here, you can see the edge of the filter, and if you don't have this down tight, if you've got any granules on the top of this thing, oops, now you can slide it up a little bit. There we go. Oops. A couple of things. One is the rubber plunger on the AeroPress wears out, and it gets very floppy. This one's nice and stiff, and when it's floppy and it slides too much, you might think that's nice, but it isn't. It becomes dangerous. The thing could fall over fairly easy, and I recommend you go to AeroPress directly to buy those things. Very, very cheap. They'll send you. You can buy. They're like $4 or $5, $6 a piece. And you can buy 4 or 5 of them, stick them in the thing, and forget about it. If you go to one of the coffee shops online, you're going to pay a whole lot more for them. So don't do that. The second thing is the grinder. One of the things that I've come to realize is how much you need to clean that. And I use a very small, pointy steak knife to actually be able to go in from both sides and from the top and break off the hardened chunks of oily coffee that get just embedded and caked into the process. You see here, this is a Belleville milk frother that my wife uses. She's very happy with that. And that, again, is an indication of the different kind of coffee that we make. But, you know, the process has worked out very well. As I said, I really like having, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 kinds of varietals that I can really taste the difference in the coffee. So the Sumatran that I'm making this morning is very different than the Costa Rican that I'm going to have in a couple of days. The bloom is really an indicator of coffee that's been roasted within the week. After about a week, pretty much all that gas is out, and it's hard to differentiate the behavior of the coffee versus anything else. Okay, so here that's 3 minutes. Let me dump this. Alright, so now you know, it's hard. One of the hardest things I think for people with the AeroPress is how hard to push. Well, don't push that hard. Don't, because at this point we're all tired of how long it's taken and want it to be over with. But you push too hard, you're going to get coffee squirting out the sides and dripping down the sides of your cup. It's just not necessary to do it. And at some point you can kind of put your fingers on the side and feel that there is progress, that the plunger is actually coming down. Otherwise you get frustrated. Same problem as before. You still have to continue to remember to hit the button on the Bonavita kettle to keep it going. Excuse me, every time you lift it. And that's about it. So you can see how long it takes for the plunger to work without. I'm putting pressure on. It's the weight of my arms plus some pressure, but I'm not really, you know, really jamming down on it. And there we get the last little air coming out. I can hear it, and I make a nice little. Now I jam down on it to kind of compact, get the last little extra special bits out at the end. I dump the plug of coffee sitting down there on the bottom. Rinse it off. Set it up for the next time. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's an Americano. I have to top off the coffee to make it. It's still extremely strong. Filling up the kettle. Early on, when I didn't do all the preheating, I actually was able to get 2 rounds of coffee out of 1 liter's worth of water. But with all the preheating of the AeroPress and of the cup of coffee and of the spoon and everything, it's almost impossible to get it all done. I need to refill it every time and start over. So here we go. Oh, that's nice. That's very. The Sumatran's earthier, rougher than the Costa Rican, a little harsher, but extremely flavorful. And this is still to this day just an extraordinary process for creating exactly the kind of coffee that you would like.